We continue now at the top of Daf Tesam and Aleph and Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 9a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara mentioned that the Roman Empire took control 180 years before the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara also mentioned on the previous Amud that for 26 years the Roman Empire ruled in partnership with the Jewish people. And so the Gemara now is bringing a statement from Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta in order to clarify exactly the order of the events. We should mention over here that on the previous Amud, the Gemara refers to him as Rabbi Yossi Berebi. It sounds like it's Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rebbe, but most understand we're talking about Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, and he's called Rabbi Yossi Berebi. It's like saying Rabbi Yossi Berivi, the great Rabbi Yossi, again referring to Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. In any case, the statement from Rabbi Yossi is as follows: Malchus pras b'fnei habayis, the kingdom of Persia, they ruled when the second Beis HaMikdash was built. So they ruled for how long? Shloshim v'arba shana. They ruled for 34 years. When the Beis HaMikdash was built, right there at the beginning, they ruled for the first 34 years. Malchus Yavan, then the Greek Empire took over b'fnei habayis. And again, while the Beis HaMikdash was standing, they ruled after the Persian Empire for Meya Ushmonim Shana. They ruled for 180 years. And Malchus Chashmonai, then came the kingdom of the Chashmonaim, Bifnei Habayis Meya V'Shalosh. They ruled while the Beis HaMikdash was standing then for 103 years. And the idea over here is that the Chashmonaim ruled together with the Roman Empire, as we'll see in a moment. And Malchus Beis Hordus, then came the Malchus of Hordus, Meya V'Shalosh. That was another 103 years. And Mikan Va'elech, from then onward, it's Seva Chashov Kama Shana Machar Churban Habayis. Then you start to calculate how many years you are after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, because again, at the conclusion of Malchus Beis Hordus, that was the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. And so the Gemara says, Alma, we see from this, Masan V'Shisava, that the Roman Empire, assuming they ruled together with the Chashmonaim and the Malchus Beis Hordus, they ruled for a total of 206 years. It really would be 206 years before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, meaning they ruled for a total of 206 years while the Beis HaMikdash was standing. V'yat Amrit Me'u Shmonim Hava, but you said that they took control from 180 years before the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. So was it 206 or was it 180? And so that's the answer to, and that's also what we said before in the previous Amud. Elo Ezrin v'Shis Shanin kamu behem nusayu b'hada Yisrael. For 26 years they kept their word and they worked in partnership with Klal Yisrael. They were ruling together. V'lo ishtavdu b'hu. They didn't. The Klal Yisrael was not in servitude to the Roman Empire. V'yamtu lahachi lo kachashiv l'hu keshapashta malchus harishal Yisrael. And that's why when we're counting the numbers of years, we don't count those 26 years. We just say 180 years before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. That's when the Roman Empire took control, because that's when they took total control and they were Meshabed Klal Yisrael. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rapapa says, Yitoi hai Tana, if this Tana is mistaken, what it means to say is not a Tana like one of the Tanoim, but it means one of the Amoraim who's teaching Brises, and he's trying to figure out how many years after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash are we holding at right now. He doesn't know exactly how many years it is. Let's say, for example, he knows we're 100 and something years after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, but he doesn't know, is it 108 years, 109, 110, and he wants to figure that out. That's what the Gemara means when it now says, V'lo yada pro. He doesn't know the details exactly what they are. He knows it's 100 and something, for example, but he doesn't know exactly whether it's 108, 109, or 110. How can he figure that out in a quick manner? And so Rav Papa says, L'shayli l'safra, he should ask a scribe, he should ask somebody who writes shtaros, kamaksiv, what year is that scribe writing right now on his shtar? Now the scribes, they used to write from the time of the Greek Empire. We said above that the Greek Empire began 386 years before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, but we don't count the first 6 years. We're going to see Rashi on that in a moment. So really they are counting from 380 years before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So let's say, we'll give an example. Let's say, for example, we're now holding 110 years after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So the scribes, if you were to ask the scribes, what are you writing right now? So you have to take 380 and you have to add 110. So it's going to be a total of 490. The scribes are writing 490 right now. And so therefore, if let's say you don't know whether it's 110, you're not sure if it's 108, 109, 110, you're trying to figure that out, and you know that the scribes, they're writing 490, so you take what they're writing, v'nitvi alayu esrin shnin, and just add to that 20 years. So you'll take 490, you add 20 years, you get 510. You don't care about the 500, you just want that number 10. You will now know that we're 110 years after the destruction of the Beis Beis HaMikdash, because again, we're talking about somebody who knows we're 100 and something. He just wants to figure out exactly how much. Is it again 108, 109, 110? He's not sure. So if he finds out again that those scribes, that they're writing the number 490, he'll know by adding 20 to getting to 510, he'll know that it's the number 10 that comes after 100. Then he'll be able to find the exact number. V'simonech in the mnemonic to remember that is Zeli Esrim Shana Beveisecha. It's a pasuk 20 years in your house, and so therefore you know to add the number 20. And Rashi explains, Amar Papa says, Itoi hai Tana, if this Tana is mistaken, the Tanya lahach masnista detzeva chashov achar churban, meaning let's say the Amora who's bringing down this brisa, which is mentioning to make a calculation, how many years are we after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash? V'lo yoda b'minyan shonim she'achar churban habayis kama shonim ta b'shana. He doesn't know the exact number of years after the destruction shu omed ba that he's standing in right now. Lo yoda ishnas chafi al hameyo, so shnas chaf aleph, o shtayim, he doesn't know, is it 120 years, 121, 122. Parate kamahavi, he doesn't have the details. And Rashi notes, ein adam toa b'meyo, so a person doesn't make a mistake in the hundreds. He knows if he's in 100 and something or 200 and something, that's not the issue. Elatoa b'shano b'shtayim, he doesn't know a year or 1 year to add on to that is 101, 102. Tahainu parate demeyos v'alpayim have a klali. In the hundreds and the thousands, that's called klali, that's general. He doesn't know the prate, he doesn't know the ones digit, he doesn't know the tens digit. So in the shaile l'safra kam, he has to ask a scribe, L'sover akosev gitin ushtaros. He asks the scribe who writes documents, Shu mona l'malchus yavan, that the count is according to the Greek rule. Kedamar l'kamon begole in mona l'malchus yavan. That's what we're going to say later on. In the exile, we go according to the rule of the Greeks. Ve'in monin l'tchilas malchusan shayu sheish shana mikutos shalom malchu ela be'elam. We don't count those first 6 years. They didn't have a full rule at that time. It was only an elam. Umisheish shanam va'elach pashta malchusan. From after 6 years, that's when they really spread out their rule. Umisham v'hola monin, and that's when we really count according to them. And so therefore, what do you do again? Rashi says, V'nitfe alayu tana esrin shenin. You're just going to add 20 years. Im yesh lo l'sofer prat tezvav al klolo l'minyan yivonim, yesh lo l'tana lamed hey prat al klolo l'minyan shnei chorban. You know, if the sofer, if the scribe, if he has 15 in terms of his number over there, so again, if you're going to add 20, you're going to get to 35, you know that the number is going to end with 35. Let's say it's going to be 135 years, for example, after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and then you'll get l'chumre, then you're going to get your answer, your number. Literally means kesher, it means a knot. Kilomar skom cheshbono yimotzekog, and then he's going to find the proper number. And Rav Papa continues with the inverse idea. Itoi Safra, let's say there's a scribe who's dating the documents and he's mistaken. He doesn't know the details. So he can ask the Tana, Neshaile Latana Kamachoshev. He can ask the Tana how many years we're holding after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And then just V'nivsar Minayu Esrin Shnin. He can subtract 20 years, Mishkach Leilachumre, and then he'll find his number. V'simonech, and the way to remember this is Safra Betzira, that the sofer is less. He's always going to be subtracting if he needs to know. And Tana Tosfa, and the Tana he's going to need to add on if he needs to know. And Rashi explains the mnemonic Safra Betzira, again the scribe, he subtracts Medaktek Betevos, he's very careful with the amount of letters that he uses in words. V'chosvan b'Masora, he writes according to the tradition. B'chesron Osio, sometimes there are some letters that are missing. And Tana Tosfa, but the Tana he adds on. It means to say Tani Tosefta, he teaches things like the Tosefta, again that means to add on, and that's how you remember that it's the scribe who subtracts and the Tana who adds on. And the Gemara continues, Tana Devei Elio was taught in the yeshiva of Elio, Sheishas Alpayim Shona Hava Ha'olam, the world is 6,000 years in total. Shnei Alpayim To, the first 2,000 years of the world are emptiness, means to say from the year 0 until the year 2000 is emptiness, there's no Torah. Shnei Alpayim Torah, the next 2,000 years, that's from the year 2000 until the year 4000, those are the years of Torah. And Shnei Alpayim Yemos HaMashiach, and then the last set of 2,000 years, that's from 4,000 until 6,000, those are the days of Mashiach. However, Bavonoseinu Sharabu, with our many sins, Yatsu Mehen Masha Yatsu Mehen, we have to deduct from them what we deduct from them, meaning to say Mashiach did not come in the year 4000 because of our many sins, and therefore we have to deduct those years from the Yemos HaMashiach. And the Gemara asks, Shnei Alpayim Torah me'emas, when you're counting the 2,000 years of Torah, from when does that start? Ineima mi Matan Torah, if you're going to say from the Matan Torah, meaning if you're going to say that Matan Torah took place in the year 2000, that is not true. Ad hashta leka kulihai, until now there is not that much, meaning if you would go from Matan Torah to the year 4000, it is not 2,000 years, because Matan Torah was not in the year 2000, it's after the year 2000. Because if you examine it, Trei Alfei Prote Dahai Alpha Hu Dahavoid, it's actually 2000 and a little bit more, meaning Matan Torah comes after the year 2000 by a bit. And Rashi over here goes through the whole calculation, but we'll just read the end of the Rashi. Rashi says, Harei dalid meyos umem ches shonim al alpayim lebrias ha'olam. It comes out that Matan Torah actually is 2,448 years from the creation of the world. And nimsa mi Matan Torah ad dalid alpayim lebrias ha'olam. If you then calculate from Matan Torah to the year 4,000, that's elef v'chamesh meyos v'chamishim u'shtayim. That comes out to 1,552. And so the Gemara continues, Ella rather mi ve'es hanefesh asher asu b'char. In the year 2000, which is the beginning of the years of Torah, that starts from the pasuk of ve'es hanefesh asher asu b'char, which is referring to the time when Avram started to bring people close to the Torah. That happened in the year 2000. And how is that the case? Ugabiri, there's a tradition, the Avram ba'ishaita bar chamshin v'tarti have, that Avram at that time, he was 52 years old. Avram was born in the year 1948 from creation, and so if you add 52 years, he was 52 years old at the time that he was bringing people close to the Torah. So 1948 plus 52, it comes out to the year 2000. That is the beginning of the years of Torah. And Kama Basran Midatani Tana, now how much is left from what the Tana taught in terms of when actual Matan Torah was? That's Arba Meya Ve'arboim Utmanya Shnin Havyan. That's going to be 448 years, meaning to say, again, as we just said from Rashi before, the Torah was given in the year 2448. And so therefore, if Avram, if he brought people close to the Torah in the year 2000, then another 448 years was the actual giving of the Torah. When you examine from the time of Hanefesh, Asharasu Becharan, Ad Matan Torah, until the time of Matan Torah, Arba Meya Ve'arboim Utmanya Shnin Haven. It's going to come out again to 448 years, because again, in the year 2000, Avram is 52 years old. He brings people close to the Torah, and then in the year 2448, that's when the Torah is given. And the Gemara continues, Amar Papa says, let's say the Tana, he's mistaken, he doesn't know exactly what the details are in terms of counting from the year 4000. We'll see Rashi in a moment. In other words, the Tana is trying to figure out how many years past the year 4000 are we. So L'Shaili L'Safra, again, he should ask the scribe, Kamaksiv, what he's writing. And again, the scribe, he would date it from the time of the beginning of the rule of the Greeks. And then if you want to find out, again, the tens and the ones digit in terms of where we are from the year 4000, V'nitzvi alayu arboin v'tamni, you just have to add on the number 48, Umishkach leila chumre, and then you'll find the proper number, V'simonech, and the mnemonic in order to remember this is as follows. And Rashi explains, Itoi Tana detoni uvavonoseinu sharabu, because again, what we just bring down, that in our many sins, yotzu mehen masha yotzu, we have to deduct whatever we deduct, meaning to say, we're past the year 4000, and Mashiach has not yet come, and we want to figure out how many years past the year 4000 are we. He wants to figure out how much have we deducted from the Emos HaMashiach. And he's just making a mistake again in 1 or 2 years. He knows, for example, that maybe we're holding 500 and something years after the year 4000, but he doesn't know, is it 510 years, 520 years, etc. He doesn't know the details. Al klal hameyos kamahave. In other words, he knows the centuries, but he doesn't know the decades, and he doesn't know the exact years. They know them toa b'meyos, because again, a person doesn't make a mistake in centuries. That's why Rapapa doesn't need to give you a mnemonic to figure out a way to remember what century we're in. So l'shayli l'safar. So again, ask a scribe. Hamonin l'malchus yavan kama prata yokosev al klolodidei. Ask him. He's counting again from the Greek rule what exactly is his dating right now. Then you could just add on to whatever he's at. Let's say he's at the year 0 in his count. So let's say, for example, it's the year 100. So then you just add on Memches Shana, just add on 48 years, and then in this example, you'll know that it ends 48. So you'll know, for example, that it's 548 years after the year 4000. Shari minyan hatana maschil la'achar kuf ayin beis shanim l'churban habayis. Now Rashi gives the actual calculations. The minyan of the Tana, that begins 172 years after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, meaning 172 years after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash is the year 4000. Sheshal Mushnei Alpayim Torah, that's when the 2000 years of Torah end. That's the year 4000. Uminyan HaSofer Maschil, now in terms of the scribes, they're already starting from the Greek rule, which was during the Beis HaMikdash. So that's Maschil Shin Pei Shanim Kodem Chorban Habayis. That's actually as we said, 380 years before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Hare minyan hasofer kodem latana taf kuf nun beis shanim. So it comes out that the scribes, they're counting 552 years earlier than this Tana who's trying to count from the year 4000. So therefore, when the Tana counts these 48 years, nishlamu klalo shel sofer, so then if you were going to add on, let's say for example, 552 years, we said that these scribes' numbers are 552 years earlier. If you're going to add on 48 years, you're actually going to get to exactly l'sheish hatmeos. You're going to get to exactly 600. V'hischel prato mikan v'elach, and so then his prato, his smaller numbers, can begin from there. Kishahaya lo shana prat, haya lo latana memtes. In other words, when you have 1 year, when he has 1 year, so the Tana is going to have 49. Kishayu yud shanim prat, when he has 10 years, hayu lo latana nunches. So then the Tana is going to have 58 years, again, as his smaller numbers. And so to just give the simplest example of this, let's say, for example, the scribe would actually write the number 552, meaning it would be 552 years from the beginning of the Greek rule. 552 years is actually the year 4000. And let's say, again, the Tana, he's not sure exactly what year we're in. He wants to know when it ends. He knows that we're in the very beginning, but he doesn't know if it's year 0 or year 1 or year 2. So all he has to do is he takes the 552, he takes that number 52, and he adds 48 to 52. 52 plus 48 is 0, and so then the person will know that we're actually exactly at the year 4000, and then you can do the exact same thing, let's say the next year. Let's say you had a situation again where the scribe wrote 553, and so now the Tana is wondering what year we're in since the year 4000. You take 553, you add 48, and you're going to get to 601, and so then you know that you put a 1 over there, we're in the year 4001. And so again, that's what Rav Papa means over here when he says add 48 in order to find l'chumre, in order to find the right number, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tes Amud Beis.